Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard. Are there any?
No.
Okay. 7, committee reports. There are none. 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, discussion and possible action on payment for North Mill Street.
So breakdowns in your packet, basically everything on North Mill, all water and sewer lines are put in, stormwater was finished this week. Pretty much at this point in time, they're gonna be waiting for, concrete to come in, do curb and, the sidewalk, and then after that, the road will go. So, kind of waiting on the concrete crews at this point.
Any questions?
That price, is that like just to date, or?
That's as of the date that they applied for it, so it's as of 10/1. So the larger part is going to be this next. We'll have a future bill that'll be a lot larger.
Is this bill to MSA?
No,
Oh,
the engineers just basically kind of write it up on what it is
okay.
and what you're being charged for, and double checks the submittal.
For the most part, is it still on budget, the timeline and everything it was supposed to be on?
Timeline? Well, no. I mean, the timeline was supposed to be done October 12th initially. It was extended, and basically, you know, they've had till the 28th is what they've been told, but unfortunately with the concrete crews, it usually is whenever they come in, they're gonna come in, otherwise, good luck. So,
I'm just wondering if anyone's like letting that neighborhood know, or like letting the residents know that this might be a little longer.
I don't know if they reached out to them after yet, at this point.
Okay. Hopefully before the snow flies.
Yeah.
Is it on budget?
Yeah, there's a few issues that happened, but none of them were like substantial. So yeah, there's no large increase. Otherwise, if there is, it usually comes in a change order. But yeah, so we're on budget. There's no change orders at this point.
Is there gonna be a surcharge for the concrete being November or whatever with calcium and stuff?
So typically, no, but it's, they were told, at the time that basically because of their delay, that it's pretty much gonna be on them, the condition that it comes in, and if they need to be called out next year to fix it, something they'll have to deal with, so. Contractor knows that. He's been reaching out to the subcontractor every single day, trying to get timeline, but, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? We would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment in the amount.
Depth, and basically we're getting water constantly in because of how the soil and where it's at, where it's located. So basically we had to put in basically a little mini sump pump that shoots the water out so that it doesn't mold inside that container. Other than that, everything else is going good. They were doing pressure testing this week. They're pouring concrete. The concrete's been poured in certain, around some of the features, and I think they were pouring the concrete either today or tomorrow for the actual playground. So, everything's on schedule there. They're still looking at having, we talked to them about having an opening day on June 1st. So, that's kind of what we're shooting for.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve payment in the amount of $276,378.18 to Intent Construction Company.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. C, discussion and possible action on quit claim deed for John Street.
Every time these disappear. The first page has kind of disappeared because of the form. It seems like every time we kind of put it in there, all the information goes away. But the addendum is accurate. Basically, this is a request that we're going to get signed, hopefully from the commercial club, because of their property line is currently on in our street that's been there. And so they sent that. We sent them over this quick claim deed that was drawn up by the attorney, and they're going to get their president to sign it, and then we would sign it. So it's just giving us our road that's currently there that they don't definitely want to have when you have to reconstruct it and pay for it. So yeah.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
You need a motion on it.
Yeah.
Before they sign it? Okay. What's the motion?
It'd be a motion to basically have Jeannie sign off on the quitclaim deed for a portion of land. Or what do you want it worded?
To accept the quitclaimed portion of, would we still call it John Street?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the quick claim portion of John Street and as presented.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. D, discussion on construction hours for the village of Hortonville.
So I got a complaint from a neighbor over by Terrace Manor. Basically on Sunday there was some construction going on at 7:30, and he complained that they were constructing it all on the weekends, and was hoping to have the village not have construction at least until 9:30 on the weekends.
Where's Terrace Manor?
That's the new
Brand new
subdivision.
subdivision?
They're pushing dirt around now,
Oh, okay.
so,
Thank you.
What time are we starting?
they started at one day at 7:30. We don't have, currently the village doesn't have any construction hours.
But it's hard because, like, for example, the Mill Street construction that's going on and the vehicles backing up is that constant beeping, and that, when it was later, they were working quite a bit later in the day. I mean, you can hear it, but I wouldn't want to hinder that.
Yeah, because they're out there early.
Right, because then we put them further behind than they are.
Yeah, I just told the resident that I don't have control,
In the morning.
because there is no hours, so I would put it on the agenda for the board to discuss, but
And they're not out there in the dark, 7:30 in the morning's not dark.
no.
Are
I
they,
think this has come up 2, 3 times on the board already, and we said, say for instance, somebody roofing in this summer, they may start at dawn because it's going to be 95 degrees by noon. So then they can cut off their crew at 1 o'clock or something for the heat relief. We've always said it's very foolish to say, okay, you can only start at 7, 7:30, 8:30. You have to quit by 8 o'clock at night because, you know, I'm putting my kid in bed. It doesn't make any sense.
And each,
We're hindering construction crews, road crews.
on the
Now we've
weekend
got a
though?
subdivision going up, and we will be hindering their building also. So most people that are in construction are very respectful, and to start at 7:30 in the morning, that's not being disrespectful.
On the weekend though?
What's the difference what day it is?
People like their Sunday mornings?
Yeah,
It's a
Well,
little
some
bit
people work on Sunday.
Right, I was just gonna say,
And
there's
have
shift
Monday
work people
off,
that
so we
sleep
should
during
say
the day.
then Monday you can't, because I
That's
work
not
on,
what
I
I'm
work on
suggesting.
Sunday.
I'm not suggesting that at all, I'm just saying, a Saturday, Sunday, it's probably a little weird to be like, oh, there's construction happening when you wake up on a Sunday morning. Is that normal for crews to be out on
No,
a
and
Sunday
even
morning?
they said, because we had a meeting today, and I just kind of mentioned what, and they're like, oh yeah, that was one of our guys who didn't want to work Saturday. He said he could work Sunday because they normally don't work Sundays, but yeah, I mean they do work Saturdays, so the weekends, yeah, a lot of times that's especially like a summer we had this year where you had a ton of rain in the beginning of the year where they were really far behind. That's their only way to catch up is using those Saturdays, and
Even a resident, so like if we were gonna do a project in our backyard that had a skid steer that had the backup alarm and all that kind of stuff, we'd be up on early Saturday and Sunday doing it, and we wouldn't be able to do it during the week. I mean, if we're gonna put dates or days of the week, I mean, I enjoy a quiet Saturday night, but that's a pipe dream where I live, you know?
And you can't control people's work schedules, I mean, people work shifts.
right.
I mean, you can't accommodate everybody.
I was just curious, like if it became a pattern of every Sunday, you know, it's, maybe it won't be, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Just doing my diligence for
no, I
this
get
person.
it. It just, I think, yeah, I don't know.
I'm waking up and it's beeping at 7 AM and I don't mind.
Right.
It's just,
and each individual project is pretty short-lived, you know,
Mhm.
in a given area, so.
Right.
We've got construction in our backyard and 2 new houses, so.
Mhm. So are we in agreement that we leave everything as is?
Yeah, and if somebody has a complaint, or if it's something specific, they certainly could contact the police department, and an officer could evaluate that specific situation.
That's, yeah, they called back again during the day. They've had an issue of it being loud, so I told them they're gonna have to call the police department, and I transferred them over there, and, yeah. So,
I mean, it's been fairly quiet over there.
E, discussion and possible action on garbage collection contract.
so the contract should be in there, and then hopefully we got the numbers in there too. Yep. basically, I got a contract from Parters, and a quote too, based on the same information from GFL. So I think if you want, I can kind of explain through, the only difference, so obviously GFL is more expensive, but the difference comes in when you're talking the potential fuel surcharge. The fuel surcharge is basically every certain amount over $4, it adds a percent. So during COVID, we had a few times where that was kicked in. As you can see below as an example, from 24 back to 2021, of the fuel surcharges we paid each month. So there was a few months that were over the threshold, which would actually make GFL cheaper compared to Harder's, because GFL has it every 25 cents, it increases a percentage instead of every 10 cents. With Harder's, it increases a percent. So the change, or the difference, I think, was after $4.50, a little bit more than $4.50 for the fuel cost for the trucks would end up adding cost to it more than Harder's. So if you, it's a 5-year contract. Prior to 2020, we at least, I should say, since 2020, I think 2018, since I've been here, I don't remember a time we had a fuel surcharge prior to COVID. So I don't know anything prior to that, but we never really had it since basically COVID was the first time it happened. So I would still suggest going with Harder's, just because it's not a consistent price surcharge. You would have to have it for obviously more than half the time in order to make it more expensive to go with Harder's compared to GFL.
And we have very few complaints with Harder's.
No, we get complaints. I mean, I really don't think either of them are going to be that great when it comes to complaints. They're kind of in their own industry, and there's really little competition between them, it seems. But yeah, you get complaints of garbage cans not being, getting broken by the machines, the compaction of the trash, they don't empty it sometimes, so then it just kind of sits open and things fly out, and neighbors call about that, and so it's...
Ours were careful putting it down and it
Right.
fell over.
No, ours are
It's-
on
up in the
Main
road.
Street,
I mean, it's
It's hard.
we probably get a few a year. It's not substantial, like it's every week or anything like that, but we have had complaints.
Well, you're always gonna have some,
Right.
but they're minor. I
Right.
don't think we've ever had a lot of trouble with them, so.
No, and the only trouble, it's usually, and most of the complaints that come in are usually because the driver's new or something, and they're not doing something every single time. Yeah.
Any questions? Otherwise, I would need a motion to accept Harder's.
Stormwater was checked, the final punch list was given to them, basically vacuuming out each of the storm sewers, removing any excess gravel that came in, and re-putting in some silt-lined guards basically over them to prevent future stones going in while construction of homes and stuff are going on. Everything's been seeded. The stormwater pond on Jaco Street is functioning properly. The reason we're splitting this is because of the fact that the stormwater pond on Shy Lane is not functioning. They were supposed to have it fixed supposedly today. So we're gonna then go through the process of testing that before we bring them back a secondary resolution for that section. Normally it's all done at once, but in order to let him start selling lots, we figured we'd do it this way.
Any questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
Make a motion to accept the R-22-24.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. G, discussion and possible action on accepting the contract for updating the village's core in 2025.
So this contract would be, basically, the Corp is a 5-year plan for the outdoor recreational plan. They updated it the last time for us. Obviously, the last time it was a lot cheaper. We didn't have anything to change. We didn't really have much for them to do. So they kept it pretty much the same the last time and then added in the survey. This time I think there's a lot more to do with it. The amount is estimated at $15,000. I guess if you guys would want to move forward with it, I would request that you would allow me to kind of talk with them and negotiate certain things, because I think there's some areas where we can do some stuff in-house that might reduce some costs. So I wanted to have a more detailed conversation with them prior to just authorizing this. They're doing their planning for 2025 right now. That's why they wanted this sooner. For the East Central, otherwise they have to go out to a engineering firm.
So you want a motion to go ahead with this for this amount of money?
Well, yeah, as a, I guess, not to exceed, then I can try to negotiate with them on certain areas. So.
Did they present this to you, or did we see them?
I saw them out, because I was talking to some of our engineering firms and asked estimated costs, and they're all around the same price. East Central Regional Planning is a nonprofit group that kind of, they do a lot of the, I guess, they do a lot of the long-term planning for the regions. So like multi-use trail plannings for the region, and water and sewer extensions go through them, as well as some other things. It used to be it used a lot more because it used to be fully funded through the state, but now is partially funded. In most of the applications for grants, these will give you a lot more points if you have them. If you don't, you can still submit the grant, but you're losing out on potential points. So the last one we did is one of the reasons we got the current grant that we have at the park, I don't think it's a bad idea to continue to invest in them if we use them for grants.
Cool.
Any other questions?
You know, I was just gonna say, we've always had good experience with East Central Regional, yeah, I mean, they've always been pretty legit, so.
We would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve payment not to exceed $14,790.72 to East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission.
A second?
Roll call, Kim.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. H, discussion and possible action on resolution R-20-24, adopting salaries for village board 2025 through 2026.
So for those who don't know, basically we bring this back every 2 years and it combines the average or the increases for the last 2 years, because it's a 2-year thing, for the village staff. So the same percentage goes to the village board. That's why we had in 2023 we had a 4%, and in 2022 we had a 6% increase. So that's why it's a 10% increase for the trustees and president positions. They're stagnant because you don't receive it now. It's for the next person who's in after the next election, that term. So.
Any questions?
And this is because I remember when we did this, so we did this so it would come up on a cyclical, that we would look at this. But we can also choose to decline it, or not decline it, but we can also choose not to increase for this cycle, or?
I mean, yeah, you always can. It's something that has to get approved. It can't be set to like an automatic increase.
Correct.
But internally, we just bring it up every 2 years because that's the structure, because then everyone's caught up. Because the first 3 trustees will have their pay at a different time than the others, and then they're caught up, and then, yeah.
So my further question is this something that would be more appropriate to look at when we're looking at budget, or do you need this when you do the budget?
So you gotta have it in before December. When it comes to the budget, it's minuscule. I mean, you're talking
Only half
cents.
the chance.
I
I
mean,
get
it's-
it, I get it. I'm just wondering, like, I would hate to approve an increase and then our budget is, we're cutting something else. And I get that
You're
this is
not.
minuscule, but.
It's in the, like, I'm working on it now, it's just taking a little longer because we have this new system and it's just trying to work out some of these issues. It's working in the general fund is fine as is. I have it balanced. I'm just in the process of finishing up on a few different things with trying to combine it into the format for the board.
Okay.
Could it be that like the $20 for the extra meetings is foregone?
Is what, like, removed?
Yeah, because I feel like that's part of our job.
Well, the special board meetings are usually for the ones that are like called randomly within 2 days
They're rare.
potentially. So it's usually like a last minute thing, and
You maybe have one a year.
it's rare you have it,
Very rare.
and it's something to kind of deal with it. I don't know. It's up to, everything's up to you guys, obviously, what you want to do with it. You could increase it, you could decrease it, but yeah.
I was looking at what New London's version of their board receives, and ours seemed quite generous in comparison to theirs. I'm in
For-
favor of it being more conservative.
For the rate or for
Or
the
the-
special meetings?
Well, theirs was divvied out slightly differently, but they just voted on it in 2023 to discuss increasing it, and they voted not to.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the community. I mean,
Right.
you go to some communities and they're spending a lot per board, I think we looked at this one time, and I think it was pretty, I think based on the population, based on budget, it was kind of in that lower, it was lower than the midpoint, I know for sure. But it kind of was in line with most where staff is in comparison, with their surrounding communities in those same jurisdictions, so that's why I think the board decided to kind of keep it at this amount.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve R-20-24.
I'll second. Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nay. Aye. Nay.
Okay, motion carried. I, discussion and possible action on resolution R-21-24, amending the fee schedule.
So, really the only fee that's drastically changing is, we've had a driveway permit, but for some reason, we didn't have it on our driveway, or our fee schedule. So we added the driveway permit fee into our fee schedule officially. Our current one is at $40, and we've raised it to $50 here. The sewer initial customer fee for single family and for two family, I know it says tow, but it's two family per unit. That increased by $1 a piece because we were getting to, basically what it was is it's rounding the number. So it's around $1,400 or $1,500 initially for a developer if we have it at the 207. Otherwise, it's $1,499. And we were getting checks constantly anyway for the 15, so it just balanced it nicer number for them. So.
Any questions on this? Otherwise, we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve R-21-24.
I'll second. Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. J, discussion and possible action on BC3 contract.
So that contract, so basically, if you have it in front of you, we can kind of go through it, each section. The first thing on the product services list there is for the wastewater treatment plant, which would be, everything's all included. There's no fee for calls, but it's monitoring, support.
I don't have it.
It was the addition.
Oh, is it?
It was sent to you guys in the email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was a separate email after the packet went out.
Yeah. Does everyone have it in front of them yet?
Well, this is, yeah, this is the email.
Yeah, it's the one you emailed, we talked about.
Okay.
So basically, the first section on here is for the wastewater treatment plant. So all of that's covered under, the treatment plant would be its own thing, covered completely by this. No fee, no extra fees per call. The issue is they normally do the fees per call, or they do this, if they did this for the admin office and everywhere else, the price goes up really high, because it's based on computers. And we have office staff where public works guys pretty much have two or three computers, and most of them all just share one for basically time cards and the only two that are really used are water and sewer. So, that would all be included, for them. When it comes to the village side, that's kind of the rest of this here. The monitoring, the Protect Shield, everything except on the second page, when you go down to where it says, Protect Shield email, Protect Archive, the one right after that, so the rapid data recovery, 2 terabyte capacity, that one, down to the rapid data 8 terabyte device, those would most likely be removed. Those are basically backup recoveries for our current servers. They're suggesting that we would go away from physical servers in-house. They kind of questioned why we would need them nowadays with the cloud services that you can get for servers instead. We're not dealing with a high amount of data here. I mean, it's pretty much the biggest data thing is the village's video recording storage that we have. Most of it's though files and stuff like that. So they suggested that we go away from the hard physical server to a digital one, which would save us about, in total, because you would need a different, you'd still need some type of protection under that. So that estimate ended up coming in and it reduced the total monthly total down to $3,114.23, which would be basically a yearly total of about $37,370.76. The village's side then, that would be a per call, so each call would have a rate though, because it's not all inclusive, like the public works side is. I think if we got rid of that and had it all inclusive for everyone, it would be around $55,000 annually. So when I did some math based on their highest cost is $250 for an hour if it's an emergency call-in. So I just took that $250 and divided by the difference between the two potential quotes through them, and you're talking about 73 hours of calls a year. To put that in perspective, this year we're at about 13.75 as of July, or September, sorry. And then last year we had about 44 hours in total. 22 we had 61.5 hours, and 2021 we had 30.75 hours. Anything kind of before that time, it's a little skewed because we used to buy blocks of hours. They just, sometimes they would send us invoices that had those recorded numbers on it, and sometimes we just, I don't know if they've never sent them to us or staff took a different invoice, but there's no details of how many hours were spent prior to that. So we got 2021 forward pretty much, because we stopped buying the blocked hours. I'm not looking for action tonight just because it's, I think, a little complicated of a topic. I'm not looking to, I mean, this quote is not to reduce costs. It's not. It's an increase in protection for us, and basically IT services for us for the admin side. The wastewater treatment side has very little protection at all. I would be very nervous if we didn't do anything with the wastewater plant. And the way that we're seeing targeting of municipalities nowadays for ransomware attacks, that's kind of what keeps us up at night when I'm dealing with managing this, and I just don't have the expertise to try to manage the IT in all three entities, and it takes up a lot of our time, and it was a lot different when I was younger and I didn't have anything going on, and I just liked learning about tech stuff, but it's getting to the point where we probably need to start looking at having some managed services. The one thing that I think we liked so far while talking to these guys was they found ways to save us money in different areas that our other providers trying to sell us on different things rather than trying to look out for what would be actually beneficial.
Nathan, my apologies if I missed it, but are there other municipalities that do use this that we could reach out to and talk to and ask their experience?
Yeah, I think the biggest one right now I think is Oshkosh. So the league kind of set up a contract with these guys, I think last year, or it might have been beginning of this year. So there's a few that have switched over. Yeah, that's.
I guess I'd be
I
curious.
don't know if it's enough time to really like judge, because I think it's a 6-month like implementation period, and then usually after that implementation period, you're gonna have a lot of kinks to work out over the next few months anyway.
So does the league, so they have I don't wanna say a vested interest, but don't we have some insurance coverage through the league as well?
Yes, we have.
So they kinda have a vested interest in making sure that we have the right security.
We have the league cybersecurity insurance, of which you're supposed to have certain things in order to be having that insurance. We have, I believe we have everything on there, but I don't think we have everything for every department on there. So it's a little weird right now. Yeah,
Okay.
Does the wastewater have its own server?
no,
So the first part, on the very first page, this is for the wastewater treatment, right?
yep.
And they have server backups?
Yeah, so they're probably gonna end up having to go to a cloud server or something.
Okay.
The other thing with the wastewater treatment, there is a thing on here at the bottom that, in the comments area, the second comment, talked about the wastewater treatment plan. I provided them with what we had detail-wise, which wasn't much. So they haven't actually toured it.
Yeah.
Right, so so
So that might,
there's, yeah,
that might change. Well, other than what we emailed back and forth on this, the only thing that was the last question that I sent you on this was
Yeah.
was the protection, the add-on Protect Shield.
yeah,
I mean, it looks like this is all, I mean, it's duplicate other than training, which, I think my last question to you on this was, are we doing training for 21 people every single month for 3 years for the same training?
so partially, so like, right now, we have a contract with Know Before, which does that, they send out phishing emails and stuff to
Okay.
our workers and our board, so, and when they fail, basically, there's security training that has to go with it, that's part of the insurance contract.
Okay.
Granted, I think they have it in here, I think somewhere, I was reading it earlier. The Protect Shield, if you go further down in the contract, that's kind of what it talks about, is what it does. The dark web protection, the cyber awareness, security training, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They do some email stuff.
Need pen testing, like penetration testing?
Yep. I believe so, yeah, yeah. The other thing is, some of the stuff in here, outside of the server and the so like the M365 business standard, and business basic stuff. I've talked to them, and I think we're starting to go through what we currently have and what's actually needed and what's not. Cause there's certain, so the basic subscription, doesn't allow desktops usage. It's internet and app-based. So you could still like log in and on the online and use it on apps, which to me that makes sense for the board. So we can have the board and probably some of our part-timers on there. But some of this, the standard version allows for desktop installation. But I had some questions because there's another version that's apps, which is only certain apps, which I think would be decent for the PD, because they allow desktop, but it's only the big four, so it's like Outlook, Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. Because our public works staff actually uses some of those other add-ons, like Planner. We use that for basically kind of work orders for our staff. So, but we're still trying to, we'll still figure that stuff kind of out here in the future. I guess, is there any other questions, concerns, thoughts?
Have you looked into grants being available?
There was a grant available. Unfortunately, it closed prior to us looking into this.
When did you look at that?
What?
When did you look at that?
When did I look at the grant? Or
Yeah.
that closed in September. And unfortunately, it closed the week I reached out to BC3 to kind of get some discussion. I think it was 2 days after I talked to them. I think part of it was being told that we had stuff down there years ago at the treatment plant I'm talking about. So there, without knowing the details, until I found out the details when I went down there and kind of started looking through some of the stuff, that it didn't seem like we had the security we were initially told. So that's kind of why this came up.
So then are you bringing this back so that it
Yep.
can be voted on to go into the budget?
Yep.
Okay. I think it is a definite need
Right.
in this day and age, so.
Okay.
Trying to get them to evaluate the wastewater plant before.
More detail. Yeah, it,
The needs are pretty minimal, but
yeah, and I think what we told them is they basically, I said, just imagine they have nothing. And that's pretty much what they did their quote based off of supposedly.
Any other questions on this? Okay, we will go to K, discussion and possible action on purchase of new sidewalk machine.
So, this came out of, we had, and I apologize for being late, but we had a sidewalk or a snow removal meeting last week, with all of the crew that does snow and they're gonna do snow. And, went over all the places in town that we're gonna do or have been doing, how they did it, where we could pick up efficiencies. Talked about some of the new places that we're gonna start taking on in the future. And one of the things that kept coming back up was a bottleneck on sidewalks. So, in order to be more efficient in our snow removal, we're looking at purchasing a new sidewalk clearing machine. So, these are 3 different prices that we got for snow clearing sidewalk machines. And I think the one for $37,000 would be the preferred route. It would be paid for out of our current Public Works CIP, all of about, I think we'd need right now about 1,700 that would have to be pulled from Public Works reserve account.
So this is like a snow blower style, right?
Like that riding thing that does like that little brush thing.
Like a tractor pusher
Yeah.
blower.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different attachments for it. But basically for sidewalks, yeah.
Will this take care of the like trail then also? I mean,
It could be used to help clean up on it. I don't think it's, would be big enough to just do 3.5 miles of trail. So we're still kind of working out how exactly that's going to work. I think right now we're leaning to a tracked skid steer with a plow or blower on it, and then having a machine like this come and clean up behind them to keep people's driveways open and different things like that. But we're still debating on what the best, most efficient way is.
but you would be able to use it for some.
Oh yeah, it would still be used in
Because
it.
that's really considered some of the sidewalk too then, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it's something that it'll be constantly moving. You know, it just kept coming up where, well, we're waiting for that machine and we're waiting for that, for the sidewalks again, we're waiting for the sidewalks again. And we have extra staff available now to run another sidewalk machine, so.
How wide are sidewalks? I'm just
5 feet.
curious. 5 feet? And this is what, 51 inches?
The 37 for the attachments.
60-inch frontage.
Well, I was looking at the two-stage
51.
snow blower, 51 inch, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wanting to know, you know what I mean, like,
60-inch front blade.
like, do we have any narrower sidewalks where that would be an issue at all?
It gets tight in certain areas, and we talked kind of about that a little bit, but they use the same type of one, this is the same type of one, correct?
Yeah, and then, you know, when Main Street gets redone too, we're gonna have probably twice as much sidewalk down there to clear too.
So we're doing the sidewalks in front of the businesses and where else are we doing sidewalks?
Front of the cemetery?
Cemetery,
Private
Village
property.
Hall here, downtown, the bridges, anywhere that's public property, so.
Miller Park.
Have we always done downtown, like downtown businesses? Cause like, I know in years past, like business owners have shoveled, but I don't know.
I think there's certain areas that it goes on and some areas it doesn't. I don't,
It's always been like that since I was here,
yeah.
Probably since you've been
Started.
here, yeah, but I just remember like shoveling in front of my parents' place and my kid going out making cash and shoveling in front of businesses, yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I have to shovel and coming through it. I mean, I have to shovel, but then when they do, when the property management company does clear it out, they send me a bill. I mean, it's what the common area maintenance fees are. So,
Thank you for shoveling Main Street. I mean, definitely benefit. I like shoveling out front too. I can say the snow does have to go
It
somewhere,
has to go somewhere.
so thank you for collecting it too.
I
I
think
think it's great.
probably in the past what happened is the business owners didn't get out right away, so then our guys would come through, clear out the parking spaces where the snow basically gets piled from the county, and then, so we clear that out, but then the
And
business
sidewalk.
owners come out and then shovel it in there, and then it's sitting there, and then we have to have our guys come back and clear that out again. So I think part of it was to remove some of that problem that kept happening. I don't know.
I think the south side had a lot, is shaded, so they have a harder time with their snow on their side.
And then we do a lot of cleanup, like of the parking stalls and stuff like that after the county comes through, because they're moving pretty good. You have a lot more area to cover. That way it's a lot nicer downtown.
you're looking at, how long do you expect this to last?
Probably 10, 15 years.
Well, because the sidewalks are gonna be what, 12 feet high
Downtown,
downtown?
I think
Mm-hmm.
11, 12.
This has a 60-inch pusher,
Yeah.
60-inch blade, so it's 5 feet.
you're gonna have, I mean, yeah, you're gonna wanna have something that's a little smaller, cause you're gonna have potentially poles to kind of work around and stuff like that.
I'm just thinking, if you're expecting it to last that long, and then the trail opens, the multimodal trail opens up, which is gonna be bigger, and the sidewalks are gonna be 12 feet. Is this one gonna support attachments that you're gonna be able to use, or are you gonna be back in 2 years?
This isn't for the trail.
Yeah,
No.
they're gonna need some.
As much as they want, so we discussed this a while with the public works group. So there's one theory that they have for clearing the trail, which is basically using a truck to just plow through,
Okay.
and then use these little machines to kind of clean up the edges by these people's property. I think that might be problematic. So my thought was basically you could do it with a skid steer that has a 6-foot blower, so that you can directionally blow the snow. The issue is if you plow it, you're gonna have every single person who lives on Main Street is gonna really get mad, because what's gonna happen is it's the same thing as when the county comes by and plows you in. He'll get mad about that. But now you're gonna have 2 of these too, and the county. So you're gonna have 3 hard areas that, once we come through and plow out these areas, they're going to harden, and it's gonna be just, when there's a big, snow, you're gonna have problems with residents basically having to get all that out there. Where if you directionally blow it, it's not making them have to duplicate their work.
Yeah, it's gonna be, we're gonna have to figure it out, like, it's gonna be the first couple snows, I'm sure there's gonna be some things that we find that work better than others and things like that, but just having the equipment and being ready for it is what we're kinda trying to get our arms around.
And I mean, for the trail to go in, you're looking at the earliest is 2027 for the back areas, or for the trail that's actually gonna be on Main Street. So you'll have a few years of this, and if basically it got to the point where we didn't need these, we could get rid of our other one that's older, that's a 2016, sell that one, and then keep this one for the single one that we need. So, I think there's still a lot of options. We're still kind of discussing internally how to best process potentially for clearing the snow on the trails.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we would need a motion. And you're happy with the $37,000 one you said?
Yeah, I think that is the cheapest one, but I think it will do just everything that we need it for.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve payment of about $37,061.91 to Sourcewell?
No,
Was it?
Service Mortar Company.
Service Motor.
I'll second.
Okay. Jim, roll call.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. L, discussion and possible action on police truck.
I can take this one. So I wasn't at the last meeting, Sergeant Barr was here. My understanding is that, the board requested that I get, an evaluation on the 2020 F-150. That evaluation came in today at, $25,000. I did hand out, a sheet for everybody, and I'll basically be, explaining, some of the different things, including my proposal, that I had thought about what makes sense in my world with what's going on with the squad cars and the management of the fleet of the squads. In 2020, we purchased the F-150 and we paid roughly $37,000 for it. We stuck in roughly $10,000 in equipment for that squad car to make it squad ready, and that doesn't include the computer or the radio. Any of the equipment that's in there of that $9,000, we won't be able to use into any other vehicle. So that $9,000 worth of equipment will just basically be thrown away. So with that trade-in of the total price of that equipment plus that squad would have equaled $46,000. There's a lot of agencies that are switching over to the F-150s just because they're a lot cheaper than the SUVs. They're holding their resale. They're just a nicer vehicle. But with the trade, you know, we would have a loss of $21,000, almost $22,000. So my proposal would be to keep all 5 squads. With the black SUV, it's a 2017. You know, we went to All World is looking at giving us $7,500. Right now, we're using it as a SUV SRO squad. It doesn't get that many miles that are being put on it. I say that we run it when you have 2 vehicles that are used as like chief vehicles or SRO vehicles or anything like that, you can run those vehicles anywhere between 10, 12 years. So you're not replacing them all the time. But if you're running the 5 vehicles, once one of them dies or you have to get rid of one of them, then you go back down to 4 vehicles. It just doesn't make sense to get rid of one of them at this time. And then I have a couple of the reasons on here also. I talked to Brian about it. You know, we can pull the radio out of there. We can pull the computer out of there and put that into the new squad. He doesn't use the radio. He doesn't use the computer. Right now, he takes the computer out of it. It doesn't sit in that squad all year round. While he's in the school, it's out of that car anyway, because it sits on his desk. He's got a regular laptop that we purchased for him that sits in his office, so he can start utilizing that, and we can put that back into that squad. And then during the summer months, which is really, he only patrols for about a month and a half, he can, if he needs to actually do any type of patrol, he can go into one of the other squads. Since 2017, I went back and I looked at the records. Since 2017, the black SUV has only cost us $1,700 in repair. We put new tires on, we put brakes, we did an oil change or 2. We had battery replacement, which was covered under warranty. Having an extra squad, we could also utilize when we have one car in the shop. There's been times that we've had a car in the shop. We had a water pump that was being replaced. It was all taken apart. Then they said to us, well, we have to keep it in here overnight. And I'm like, I can't. You guys got to put it together because we need a squad, because we have 2 SROs and everything else. Well, what ended up happening was I get pulled from the road. I can't work the road. Brian Barr's got to take his personal vehicle to school so that we got an SRO that can take he takes my pickup, and then we have one driving the one squad and one driving another squad. So now we're short squads because we got one squad down because we got a water pump that's apart. There's other times that, you know, we have homecoming events, like we had the Hortonville homecoming. It was great that we had one squad, the brand new one. It had nothing in it like lights or siren or anything. It had decals on it, but we were able to use it because we needed a 5th squad. Because we had vehicles that were parked all over the place to block roads and everything else. So it was great that we had that 5th squad. So it's kind of nice to have that 5th one here and there when we do need it. The pickup truck, I have the uses on here. So we have a drug drop-off box. So 2 times a year we average between 11 and 12 of the drug drop-off boxes of the medications that are being disposed of here. So the boxes are roughly about this big, and we pile 10 to 12 boxes, and those are transported down to Fond du Lac every year, twice a year, and we won't be able to take those down to Fond du Lac anymore. We can't put 12 of those boxes in a back seat of an SUV. They only take them one day out of that. It's a certain time that they take them on a certain day. So there's no way that we can have that drug drop-off box unless we have maybe the DPW ends up taking them that day, and then we're gonna have to go with them. We transport animals in cages. Sometimes people end up trapping a dog or something. We can't have that dog transported into another cage because the animal is vicious. So we put the dog in the back of the pickup truck, covered it in a blanket, and transported it to the Humane Association. We've had evidence that's been transported from a crime scene. We've transported cones and other things from special events. We've hauled trailers, bike rodeo stuff to cruisers. We had another incident, and it says officer safety and death threats. One of the nice things about me driving the vehicle is the vehicle doesn't get driven a lot. People know who I am when I'm out driving it during the day. Everybody waves at me. But at night, nobody really knows who's driving that vehicle because it's not seen at night. We had an officer who arrested somebody. That person ended up going into Shields and then started asking questions about ammo that would penetrate a bulletproof vest. And that person was targeting one of our officers. The salesperson ended up calling Grand Chute. Grand Chute then ended up finding out that it was our officer that he was targeting. So we made the decision with talking to the officer that we put him in the unmarked squad car, and he continued to work for 2 weeks until he felt safe enough to go back into a regular marked squad. So it's got its advantages. We use it when the night shift, if a squad goes down, we had a radar go down, so we just moved somebody into the pickup truck. When we're short on squads, like I said before, sometimes we have 2 SROs, we have a day shift officer, and we have a court officer that are all working during the day. So a lot of times we have 4 officers that are working. My idea behind it would be, is currently Hauser is driving back and forth to Greenville, and he's putting on a lot of extra miles on 21 and 24. Squad 24 is being used all day long. It's being used during the day, it's being used at night. Whereas the new squad is basically only being used as a day shift. So my suggestion is to take Squad 21, which has got the 50,000 miles on it, and put Officer Hauser into that squad and have him primarily drive that squad. That way he's driving that squad back and forth to Greenville. He's not driving the squad 24, and it's not being driven during the day, and it's not being driven at night. I think what's going to happen then, and I know what's going to happen, is it's going to substantially lower the miles on both Squad 21 and 24. I have on there about what their bi-weekly miles are and what their annual miles are that they put on there. And then down lower I have what we have currently for the vehicles. I also have the dates that we look at potentially replacing the vehicles that you have on there. And then on the bottom, I have kind of what the other departments have for squads. Any questions?
Thank you for putting this together.
So you're proposing proposing that we keep all 6,
5,
plus the truck.
5,
So we have 3, and we just bought 1, so we have 4,
it's 5.
and then the truck is 5.
So, I mean, potentially, so what the whole idea was is when we bought the brand new one, the 2025, the whole idea is to get rid of the black one, okay? So the black one was, because it's the oldest one, and that's what we normally do. So the black one is a 2020, or is a 2017. The black one was actually put together by an officer that's no longer with our department. And it was hodgepodge. It was not put together correctly. It was a huge fire hazard. Officer Pago had to come in and he had to make it so it wasn't a fire hazard. He's actually surprised it hasn't started on fire yet. But he's pretty confident that it's not gonna start on fire because he had to go over and pull a lot of wires and he rewired the whole thing. So we stuck a little bit of time into that. We didn't stick any money into it because Officer Pago volunteered all his time rewiring that entire car. It's not costing us anything. That car is pretty sound. It's a good car. Like I said, we put new brakes in it. We put new tires on it. The oil changes are here and there. It's got a new battery. We run it every day, so it's a good sound vehicle. I just think that if they're gonna give us $7,500 for it, we should just hang on to it and just keep it until something, goes on. It makes more sense to me that if we rack up the miles on squad 21, okay, because 21 and 24 and 25, all the equipment can interchange with them. So the 2017 squad car is smaller this way, and the 2021 and 2022 and the 2025 are all made wider, okay? So all the equipment can fit in each one of them all the same. So you can take the equipment out of 21 and put it in 25. You can take the equipment out of 22 and put it in 25. You're gonna be able to take the equipment out of 21 and put it in a 26. And you can take the equipment out of probably 22 and put it in a 27. Okay? So you can take the bars off of that, but you can't take the bars off of the 17 and put them into a 22. So all the equipment in the 2017 is gonna go in the garbage too. It just makes sense that you have them there, they're equipped. Run it until you can't run it anymore.
I just have one question. Was the $7,500 trade-in figured in the budget for purchasing this vehicle originally?
No.
So this is just a gain of 75 if we chose to sell it. I can't see where we benefit by doing it anyway, so.
No, I think we all agreed on that at the last meeting, that we weren't looking at selling it, we were just trying to figure out the value. So Black Creek, did they change to all trucks now?
Mm-hmm. They've
And-
always had SUVs.
Oh, so you mean, so Black Creek, it's SUVs,
Yeah. They have big SUVs. They have
and then Winneconne,
Tahoes?
they have F-150 trucks, or they've got,
all F-150s.
but then Black Creek is like a larger SUV,
Yeah.
so
They
it's
have
not,
Tahoes.
it's the Tahoe, it's not the Interceptor?
Right.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. I guess I'm not comfortable having all this information. I guess I'd like to look further into this now that we have this.
Well, the new squad, they wanted the squad they wanted it on Tuesday. So,
Who,
I'm
who
on-
wanted it on Tuesday?
the builder. So I'm on hold. So they have the brand new 2025. So,
To equip it, is that what you're
Yeah.
trying to talk about?
so they want the radio and the computer.
So it's, okay, so that's gonna come out in your proposal, that comes out of the 2017, which was
Yep.
the plan originally anyways.
Right.
But it's not interchangeable.
It is with the
It is.
2025, the other equipment is not, but the computer and the radio are
Computer and the
separate.
radio.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that,
Right.
that has nothing to do with the other things, which is the only thing that's gonna be going into that one. From the 2017, right?
And I think the concern last meeting was, so like we have really heavy on mileage on some vehicles, but really light like on the truck. And I guess the question was, could the truck be put into rotation to help even that balance out?
But you don't
for-
wanna do that. For fleet management, you don't wanna have even amount. Because what's gonna happen if you have even miles on everything, then all of a sudden you're gonna have, every vehicle's gonna have, you're gonna have 80,000, 80,000, 80,000, 80,000, 80,000, and everything's gonna take a crap all at the same time. You're gonna be replacing water pump, water pump, water pump, water pump,
No.
water pump.
I get all that, I think the
Right.
issue was that it was such a drastic difference between the mileage. It's
But you're gonna,
50,000 versus
Right, but
75.
but if you look on the back here, you're keeping the 2025 until 2030, when you're potentially you're keeping the, let me go back here. You're keeping the 2020 till 2032. So you're keeping it 12 years when you're getting rid of the other ones in 4 years. So you're keeping it 12 years versus 4 years. You're keeping it 3 times longer. And it makes a difference because you have your supervisor vehicles that are being driven a lot lighter, a lot nicer. They're not beating on them. They're not being accelerated very fast. They're not braking on them very much or anything like that either.
What's the difference in, so you have 21 is a 21 being replaced after 4 years or 5 years. 2022 is being replaced in the same time frame. For the 2017, you have 12 years. And the truck
Because-
is 12 years.
Yep, because that's a supervisor vehicle.
The 2017?
Mm-hmm.
How many miles are on the truck?
That's
It's got 9,000.
9,000. Yeah, Bar's got the supervisor vehicle also. He's a supervisor.
So the 2 supervisor vehicles, the SUV, the black one, the oldest one, and the truck are 12-year lifespans.
Usually.
And all the rest of the squad cars are 5,
Mhm.
6, or 5.
But that's not what was presented right away, was, let's keep.
Dependent
So
upon what the.
let's get rid, we're getting a new squad, let's get rid of the 2017, because it's the oldest one. So, I don't think anybody expects you to have the same mileage on all the vehicles, but when it comes down to your 2 oldest vehicles in your fleet have less than half of the or somewhere, they have half the miles or less than half the miles of the 2 newest vehicles in the fleet, something is not being managed properly. Right, so,
That's actually kind of normal at a lot of different departments.
And we don't expect you to have all the same miles.
No.
no, but when it comes time to when it comes time to present to the board to say, we're getting a new vehicle, this is the one we want to get rid of, we shouldn't be getting rid of one that has half of the miles of what all the other active ones that we have. And then having to get a quote, having to get an offer of $7,500, which is ridiculous, right? So, the consensus in the last discussion when you weren't here was, it's not worth getting $7,500 for a vehicle that has 40,000 miles. That was pretty well accepted
Right.
across the board here. And then we started looking at, okay, well, we're getting a new vehicle, we're getting a brand new vehicle. And we need a radio, which is what, 7,000 plus, and a computer to put in it. And we have a vehicle that's not being utilized.
But we don't need a computer. And we don't really need a radio.
You don't need a radio and then, okay. I mean, I'm with Julie, I'd like to look at this a little bit more, but I would tell you that I'm looking at the list of uses for the pickup truck, and I'm not convinced that it's a good investment for the village to maintain. I mean, you know, the transportation of the medical, that could easily be done with a squad and then the admin vehicle, which we added to our fleet. Hauling trailers, that's a DPW type of a thing. All the rest of this stuff, you know, with the exception of the one instance of having an officer that was, you know, that was concerned about safety, where we put him in an unmarked vehicle, you know, with that one exception, and I'm sure that there's another solution for that. But I don't see that it's being effectively utilized as a vehicle. I mean, if I would have known that this is where we were going beforehand, I would have said, take your truck in and get it stickered up and get lights put on it, and instead of buying a brand new vehicle, put that one into use. And then we would have saved ourselves almost $50,000. And then you'd still have the same number of vehicles in your fleet, and you would have one that only had 9,000 miles coming into use.
So the trade-ins, the values were just from All World. Have we taken them anywhere, the two vehicles, anywhere else to see for a trade-in? Because I mean, every dealership is different.
Yeah. Did you look at that?
I'm just curious. So that 7,500 might seem crazy because it's such a low number, but what if there is another dealership out there that the amount is different, or this 25,000?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There could be a very big difference between different dealerships.
Oh, I agree.
Bergstrom Lincoln in Neenah, or even Lestown Ford in Appleton. I don't know.
You're better off selling them outside of the dealerships.
Correct, but where do you come up with the value?
Realistically, the dealerships, they understand what police vehicles are. Your general population doesn't.
No. But even my own personal vehicle, I would take it more than one place. Like, if I was looking at,
I think realistically, if we were looking at selling it, you would put it on the auction site and have a minimum of what you guys would accept. I know we were looking for initially for our Sterling was about like 1,500, which was just basically scrap. That's what we were offered. We were able to sell that this last week. It sold for 8,800 on the auction site. So you could do it that would probably be your best bet if you were looking at selling it.
Did we look up the Google value on the truck?
It's hard. It's not like a personal vehicle, because when you strip everything out of it, it's got a lot of features that a normal truck won't have. Like, it's lacking, and it doesn't.
even the seating in it is
right.
different. Even the seating is different. So it's a unique vehicle.
I mean, if you came and looked at the admin SUV, you'd see like there's no like console at all in between. Like there's no armrest. There's nothing there. So other than two cup holders, and that's about it. So I don't know if the Blue Book's going to be that accurate. That's kind of the concern.
Well, it would give us a number to look at and compare to what All World is doing.
Right.
And let us know that All World is just saying
All World
we
normally is a lot.
We can cash in here.
They always undercut
Yeah.
usually. But I will say for the amount that we're seeing for the SUVs on the auction sites are around that. They're selling for around 8,000, potentially towards 10, depending on the miles. I mean, obviously, a lot of them that are selling are a little under because they're 140,000 miles, 70,000 miles.
Department. And I do think there's a lot of potential there. You shared that F-150s are also affordable as far as ordering new vehicles if the village ever wanted to go that direction and have more F-150s. If it makes more sense to order that than a squad, or have a mixture of both. Just seeing that other communities have other vehicles. I mean,
Well, I think it's more the resale value and not the cost, because If you look at the cost of
I'm
the
just-
F-150 was 46,800, and the cost of the new SUV was 46,960. So the cost, I mean, it doesn't look like the cost was that substantial of a difference.
I'm just touching back on the use of the pickup truck.
Yeah.
I'm seeing and I'm hearing how it's being used and it's valuable, it's an asset.
I know a lot of my guys just don't like to drive it. They're not used to it. They have little tiny cars, and when it comes time to driving it, they just don't care to drive it.
And just so I'm clear on this, you're looking at reassigning these vehicles to become more efficient in putting the miles on.
That's what my goal is to, you know, the ultimate goal is to put Hauser into Squad 21, to ultimately relieve some of the miles that are being put on the brand new one and in the night shift squad, because the night shift squad is being ran all day and all night. So, and it's being ran, so I covered, the last 2 days, the 12-hour shifts, because the officer was sick. So, Hauser worked Monday and Tuesday, and I worked Wednesday and Thursday, 12-hour shifts. So, Hauser worked all 4 days and drove that squad all 4 days, but 2 of those days, he drove it to the schools, okay? So if he had Squad 21 and used it for the schools, then he could take it to the schools instead of, and it could have sat in the garage and it would have like not putting miles on it. You know, where Monday he would have just drove it to work the road, and then on Tuesday he works 4 hours in the morning on the road, and then he works 4 hours in the school, and then he comes back 4 hours on the road. He could drive Squad 21 again and put the miles on that car and alleviate some of the miles that are being put on the brand new squad. I mean, that's my ultimate goal, is to kind of spread out the miles a little bit instead of, but on the other hand, I mean, there's days that we're short squads. We're short. And there's no reason why an officer should have to take his personal vehicle to the school.
So we have, and help me out with my math here, so we have 7 officers, right?
Yes,
So potentially night shift 1 person on, potentially 2 on during the day, plus a 3rd because of chief, but we have 5 cars. I'm just trying to
So-
understand.
so on the first Wednesday of the month, we have court. So we have 2 school resource officers on, we have a full-time guy on, we have a chief on, and a court officer. All during the day.
You have court during the day?
Well, he comes in.
No, what
What
were
do you
you
need a
asking?
squad for? I mean, you're talking about the municipal court here, right?
Right, right.
Okay, you're-
So we
and
have
you have
him-
officers,
yeah,
so
we
you have
have-
officers out on patrol, and you
So
have
we
an
ha-
officer
yeah,
here at court,
Yep,
but
so,
that officer's not
yep,
using a vehicle for patrol.
no, so what we have him now do is come in at 3 o'clock. So like Officer Hauser gets done at 3, so then he comes in at 3, so that, I mean, but there was times where we had like that many officers that were on it at one whole time, so we had like Barr take his vehicle over to the school. Because we had too many officers working that needed to be working.
So,
Is there any reason why we can't keep 5 vehicles? I mean, was there a budgetary thing? Was there, I wasn't here when this whole, the vehicle
so
was being purchased, but.
the reason for the discussion where we got to this point where we are now is that we bought a new squad, and when we buy a new squad, we typically get rid of one. We get rid of the oldest one in the fleet.
Mhm.
Okay, so that was the plan. And then, the offer for $7,500 wasn't reasonable. So then we looked at the the option of keeping that squad, but then if we keep that squad, then we're increasing the size of the fleet, and if we don't necessarily, we were already gonna get rid of a squad, which typically means you don't necessarily need it, so that means now we're looking at, and then
But
the
maybe-
discussion was about, well, what can we do to reduce the fleet back to the squads that are actually needed and going to be used?
Okay, so, but since the purchase was made or discussed, have needs changed where there is a need for 5 vehicles at certain times? Whatever the case may be, whether it's because there's a vehicle down, whether there's a number more officers working, a need to be out there. Is there absolutely a need now that maybe we do need 5 squads?
And we talked about this too, is that the truck is not a patrol-ready vehicle. It is a supervisory vehicle. It's not, it doesn't go out on patrol because it's not a marked vehicle, and it's not,
It is
the way
patrol-ready.
Hauser put it was, it's not patrol-ready.
It is
So-
patrol ready.
Well, that's what your officers, that's what,
I'm
that's
not
what
sure
Brian
if he
said.
used the word patrol ready, I think it was that there was,
Was-
that it could be used for patrol, it just was unmarked.
Yeah, so we have patrol-ready vehicles, so if we kept the 2017, we would have an additional patrol-ready vehicle that could go into the rotation versus
But we
having
would
the
still be
truck.
out a radio and a computer unless.
Yes, yeah, because we're short on a radio and we're short on a radio, which he was saying was around 7,000, 7,500.
But if that part's not needed for the
If you-
SRO officers, or officer, or whichever the case may be, then that should be a moot point.
Which I believe does the radio work in that, what number of vehicle is
We
that?
weren't gonna put, yeah, it would work in the 2025.
In the 2017, the radio doesn't currently work, right? Or does it?
It does work.
It does work,
So, but he doesn't use it. He said he could use his portable.
okay.
Yeah, so you would move the radio and the computer from the 2017 to the 2025,
Right.
and he would simply have his laptop from the office and
Right.
his portable radio,
Right.
Which
In the-
he's fine with.
which he's fine with.
Right.
I think the question came up as, do we need 5? And if we don't, what vehicle would we trade? And so we were questioning, and I remember asking Brian, like, give me a rundown of the mileage in these vehicles. And that's where we came up with, and that was where we were questioning, so like with the F-150, at the time, he told us 8,700 miles. And breaking that down, that's not even 2,000 miles a year,
Right.
on
I
a
get
vehicle.
all that. I remember all that. I get
Yeah.
all that. I'm looking at, it's,
I think that was where the question came up with, like, do we need 5 vehicles? And then also to the general public, we have 7 officers but 5 vehicles, you know, and potentially 2, maybe 3 on at a time. What are we doing with these extra vehicles? And I think that's really where this all stemmed from,
Okay.
like, the values.
Yeah, my thought process is, if there isn't truly a need where you say you have to have 5 vehicles, not once or like twice a year or once or twice here or there, or something that could be supplemented somewhere else, then do we want to add, and it's not necessarily like the 5 we have now. I mean, I honestly, I think, in my mind, I think keeping them right now probably makes more sense. But the problem with keeping them is that when one of them expires, now we have 5 vehicles, and we get rid of one, we have to get another vehicle, because now we have to have 5, because we're used to having 5. We had 5 in the fleet, and now we're gonna keep 5. And those types of things perpetuate themselves, and that's my concern, is if there is a situation where you're only using 4, right, and you buy a new one, you should be getting rid of one, right? And we didn't want to get rid of the one because the value is so low, so then the suggestion, or the idea came up, well, let's look at the one that has the most value for getting rid of, and recoup or minimize our losses.
And I said right away, I said we get rid of one when one dies. That was one of the first things that I said. We'll have 4, we'll go down to, we'll go from 4 up to 5 because of the 7,500, and then we'll go back down to 4. I realize that. So
But at
it
that point,
doesn't,
then you'd have to put lights and markings on the truck then, at some point.
potentially,
So even though the 21 and 22 have more miles, they're newer vehicles, would you get more if you were gonna get rid of one? Would one of those be better to get rid of? No?
No,
Well,
they're
my
all,
guess is the truck.
basically,
They're all
all
the same.
police vehicles, no matter how old, it doesn't seem like there's much difference. It's like between $3,000 for the type. So like all the SUVs, from what I've seen on our Wisconsin surplus, has been, you know, you have some selling at, you know, 140,000 miles, and those are selling for about $6,000. The ones that are 70,000 miles at around 8. It's not a huge difference between the sales on there. And even the Tahoes that are coming in, our 2019 Tahoe on there was at 8.9. So it's,
A lot of those SUVs aren't resold for police use, they're sold for other municipal use, and that was where the
other municipal or anyone else who wants a car, it's not bad.
They're difficult to insure, actually, because we were looking at buying a police
Right.
car at one point, a former police car, and they were difficult to insure. Because they're different, their engines are different, they're geared differently, you know. But that was where like an agency, you know, if somebody is going to look at something on surplus, what would they be looking for?
You don't really go
No.
for an agency. You're basically selling to the public on that.
Yeah.
You get a lot of the public works stuff probably doesn't go to another municipality. It
No.
most likely will go to
Public.
like farmers or someone who wants to, you know, fix it up or knows what they're doing.
I think you're right, Julie, because they really had a difficult time trying to find a price for me.
They're difficult to insure for public use. You can insure them, but because they were a former, they're just, the engines are different.
Does that 150 have some mechanical modifications?
It's a twin turbo.
I don't think that one does, but I'm saying like an Interceptor does.
The one that you currently have.
Yeah, it's a twin turbo.
Just a twin turbo, that's the only, okay.
But
I didn't say, because
Absolutely.
there's a 2014 F-150 out on Gibbons Road, it's got 324,000 miles, and they're selling it for $7,000. The trucks, I understand, I think the chief is right here with I think the cost is still relatively the same, but I think the resale value on trucks is significantly higher than the resale value on an SUV.
A police Interceptor are specifically made for police use, and those are the ones that are difficult to put into public use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be skeptical if any of the F-150s really retain much more than the other ones in comparison. I know they do it in like normal, like citizens resale,
Yeah.
but I've seen very little come up yet because I think they weren't used as much in the past. I know the Tahoes are coming up now because they were a big hit back in the 2018s to even more so recently, and so those are coming up and they're still around the 9,000. I just think it's a police vehicle. The more the police use it, that cost drops significantly. So that was, I think, part of the reason that when we looked at which ones we would sell, the only one that would have the most resale value is the one that's not really being driven like a police car. It's at a lower mileage, and that was why that came up.
That vehicle came up. I guess I'd like some time to absorb a little bit of this information, but to also, like, the general public, I've been asked, like, how many squads does the PD have? And I don't know how comfortable I feel right now telling them we have 5. Because I think that is heavy for a municipality of our size. So if we are really truly going to keep 5, then I want to know that we've justified that cost. To insure it, to keep it maintained, keep it equipped, everything else.
Insurance, like I said, it's less than, it's about $100 and something a year or so. It's ridiculous.
I know, but I'd still feel better, because I would, right now,
No,
have a hard time
but we-
explaining to someone
right,
5
but-
vehicles.
But we also have 2 school resource officers on. In the
I know.
beginning of the year, we also changed our schedule changes for our officers. So, and Sergeant Barr is looking to potentially, he asked me to look at the schedule because the guys switched to the 84-hour schedule next year, okay? So with that being said, they're looking at having Hauser working 5 days a week, like Barr. So now we're gonna have a school resource officer, and I don't know what the schedule looks like, so I haven't worked on that yet. but that's gonna have Hauser in the school 5 days a week. Right now, he's in the school only 3 days a week. So that's gonna make him driving more to Greenville. It's gonna increase his miles. It's gonna increase him more in the schools. He's gonna need there's gonna be a need for squads. So I don't know what that's gonna look like yet either. I mean, and do we reach out to the schools and ask the schools if they potentially could maybe help out with the cost of squads? I don't know. I mean, is that a conversation that we have with them?
They already
Because
did.
other schools, other villages are doing that, or cities are doing that have school resource officers, but now I got 2 SROs.
They get
that-
billed for the mileage that counts the reimbursement for basically a repurchase of them.
Sure, but
That was a new thing that
Right.
we added on in the last contract, so.
SRO
Yeah.
contract recently.
that's not a whole lot, but some of them, go out there, and they actually have like schools that pay for half of the squads.
But then could that potentially limit us on what we can use that squad for,
Potentially.
potentially?
Yeah.
And we just redid this, when was the SRO contract just done? I know Brian did a
Last year.
presentation.
It was it was the year before we did the union contract, so, yeah, it would've been, last year, yeah.
Yeah.
23.
And generally the SROs, I mean, I don't know how much difference with mileage. I know we drive to Greenville, or Brian Hauser drives to Greenville, but they sit idle too. Unless they're headed to north or something. I would just like to be able to absorb this a little better before making any decision.
But in doing so, what happens, Chief, with the contract with the equipment people to put,
I don't think that changes
That's
right
not
now.
gonna
We're still
change
gonna
it,
put
because you're not
the
gonna
stuff
take
from
equipment out of the truck, you're not
2017 to
gonna
the
take equipment out of
2025.
17, so
there was a time deadline, and I was just trying to figure out what that was.
Is it like a contract that we do for the equipment, or is this an independent person, or?
Well, it's a business that
But I mean, is there any, I don't understand
I mean,
what the
am I,
conflict
I
is.
guess, I don't wanna do something that I can't be doing. Am I okay to give him the 2017 and allow him to take the radio out of that one? And, I mean, cause if you're gonna decide to get rid of the F-150.
Either way, we gotta take it out of the 17, right?
No,
No?
because let's say you got rid of the F-150, you'd take the
Right.
radio from that,
Yeah.
technically. So, if you got rid of it, if you had them do the 2017, you'd take that out.
When-
You might have to then have another appointment to take it out of the 21 to put it
And pay
into,
for
back
him to
into the
do that.
17.
Is there a penalty if we wait a couple weeks? Have we paid them, or is there a penalty that we have to pay? I don't know how I don't know how it works, Chris.
And I don't know either.
Yeah. I just would like to know that we just crossed all those Ts and dotted those Is on this, so that, because we would, essentially, I would also not want to tell a future board, because we can't tell them that now we have a squad or we have a fleet of 5 vehicles. And I understand that the idea is that we would go down to 4, but we can't tie another board to that.
yeah.
We can't.
Can't you just put a disclaimer on the one that was gonna be valued at 7,500? Like, hey, this is our backup beater one. Once it's dead, we don't replace it.
But I think that's telling a
Yeah,
future
you
board
can't.
what they gotta do, and we can't do that, right? I mean,
Well, and it might.
Well, I mean, if the staff is still, I mean, we've done that, we've done things like that, but there's no necessarily, like, you can't hold them to it.
no,
There's no, like, enforcement of that, just because, we've taken it down through the years saying that, after this one's gone, we're not going to. It doesn't mean,
I mean, I'm a
the
full
new chief
supporter.
comes in, if nothing dies while she's here, and then all of a sudden, there's a new chief, and, when she retires, and you got 5 squads, and the new chief comes in and wants to keep them, I mean.
Correct, and I think you know me well enough that I'm a huge supporter of our police department and our officers, our chief, everything. I just, before making any kind of decision, I would just like a little bit of time to absorb what was given to us tonight.
It's
I just need that information so that we're making a decision that we've had a little bit of time to look at.
I mean, it sounds like if the F-150 leaves, that's a loss of almost 22,000 versus if you sell the sell the 2017 for 7,500.
But I don't think you can say it's a lot
Yeah,
of
there's no loss
21,000, because if we
Okay.
divide that by the 5 years of service that we've gotten out of it, it's, I mean, cars depreciate, right? So,
Well, the
You
other
have to-
thing I would ask is that
At this
we,
point, there's no loss either. I mean, it's just a gain. There's no loss anymore, because we bought a new vehicle. We own all vehicles in the fleet, so there is, I mean, if you look at it on paper, how much money did you pay for it, how much money can you get for it? Yeah, you can look at it that way, but technically, there's no loss. There's no more money coming out of the village's pocket
Right, I totally
because of this. It's just, how much can you recoup?
so the trade-in
Yeah.
value that you got on both these vehicles, are they on, like, is anything in writing from,
Yeah, I mean, Chris got quotes from all world, that's in writing.
that's in writing? So like, if we just look at another Ford dealership, and I get it that maybe it's gonna be exactly the same, but I would just, there
Yeah.
could be a difference.
Would it change anything if it's an additional $1,000 though?
Yeah. 1,000, no, 5,000 could be, yeah, you know what I mean? I just, we,
30,000 or
we're
35,000,
stewards of that,
yeah.
of the taxpayer dollars, and that's where I just really hesitate to make a decision on anything, but getting that little bit of extra information might help us make that decision.
Like I said, I think the perfect solution is if we, instead of ordering this new one, we just put lights and stickers on the other one, and then we didn't have to order the brand new one. And then we saved the village $50,000 almost. That would have been a better solution if we had known in advance that we were only gonna get offered 7,500 for 2014. We could have had a new vehicle that was set for
Yeah.
patrols.
But we have this rotation in our
Yes.
CIP, and I think, you know, that's something that, and it, for the most part, works really well. But now we're kind of veering from that rotation, and I just wanna make sure that we're covering all of our bases.
But unfortunately, I mean, you can say 7,500. We had a Dodge Charger. What did we get for the Dodge Charger? About the same thing. I mean, the last two vehicles we kept. So we have no idea what the trade-in value for those would be.
Yeah.
I mean, so the trade-in value for all police vehicles is hardly anything. So, I mean, you go, you're only gonna get this amount of money, that's what you're getting, okay? Cause that's what we got on the Dodge Charger. We let it go for 7,500. It wasn't hardly anything, cause it was a piece of crap. They get beat on, the seats are torn apart, half the stuff inside of them doesn't work.
That's why they give us.
It's a tool. It's a tool. You know, our gun belts rub in the seats. The 2021's got holes in the backs of the seats and stuff like that. The dashboard's got, I mean, because you're drilling holes to put the radars in them and everything else, and the pieces of molding on the sides are ripped off and everything else. They do not look like your vehicle out in the parking lot. They're
Tools.
Well,
they're
you-
tools. They're tools. And that's why you're getting $7,500 for these things. You gotta understand, they are tools. And that's why you're getting $7,500 for them.
So,
And that's about all you're gonna get for it. I mean, for me, to go around and drive from dealership to dealership to see what I can get instead of doing other things that I have other things to do for $1,000, I mean, it's crazy. I'm sorry, but
I'm just trying to make the best decision, and this to me, to make a decision tonight on this just wouldn't feel right. Just like it didn't feel right with the $7,500. It didn't feel
Yeah.
right.
I agree. So,
And I just would
can
feel
we
better.
can we call the company that's supposed to be fitting the new squad and just say, park it for 2 weeks? Is that an option?
well, it's gonna be, by the time we have our next board meeting, it's gonna be 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've been waiting for 2 years to get the vehicle. Is it gonna, I mean, can we wait 3 weeks?
Well, and I can ask him, but if he gets another squad that comes in, we might be in another month or 2 or 3, depending upon where we're gonna line up in the rotation.
With this would also probably give some time to look at that schedule that changes with the contract. Different scheduling goes into change too, you know? I don't know.
I'm just trying to come up with a solution that, I mean, Julie's asking for more time, and I don't think it's a bad idea to look at it a little bit more. I'm just trying to come up with a suggestion to get that
I'm
time.
sorry, I'm frustrated. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've been actually doing this for 12 years. And I've never had a problem trying to fleet out vehicles and determine which vehicles should go. I think I'm very conscious as far as which vehicles I should be trading out and which ones I should be keeping, and I think I do a good job at it.
No one's saying you don't, Chris. It's that we would go from a 4-vehicle fleet to a 5-vehicle fleet, and I think that's my concern.
I wanted to stay with a 4-vehicle fleet, okay? And I was not at the board meeting, the last board meeting. And somehow it got turned into, let's get rid of the chief's vehicle, okay? Because the chief's not driving her vehicle. The chief is driving her vehicle, okay? And just because I don't put on that many miles, it doesn't mean that we need to get rid of that vehicle. Let's figure out how we can put more miles or less miles on the different vehicles. I mean, you gotta get creative and you gotta figure out how to spread out the miles on the vehicles.
And I think I can answer for myself here. I don't know if maybe this was not an intention to get rid of a cheap vehicle. This was an intention of what vehicle has the most amount of value for trade-in, and that could be the 2021, or it could be the 2022, it could be any of these. I just hesitate to go up to a bigger fleet without knowing. If I would have had, even just having this a day or 2 ago, I would have had a chance to read through it a little better, but honestly, it just doesn't feel right making a decision tonight. That isn't a no, it's just, I'm just telling you personally, I need a little more time to read through this and understand it.
I agree with Julie.
And maybe.
I think we all need a little time, because this was just thrown at us tonight. We really didn't have a chance to look at this or study it.
And I tried getting an answer from several people as far as what happened at the meeting, and I didn't know what happened at the meeting.
I think it was like Julie said, we just wanted to know which vehicle would have the most trade-in value. So
Right.
that's why we were looking at what we could possibly get for the F-150, because it had the least mileage on it.
Right.
And it was probably going to be more valuable to us to sell at this point. So, I guess we just need to see, rather than, is the right word trade-in? Or do we say sell outright?
It's
Because
Yeah.
sell
Yeah, 'cause
outright,
we've already
you would
purchased
get
it.
more money to sell
Yeah.
outright. You're never gonna get anything decent in a trade-in.
Yeah, are we selling outright, or are we extending the fleet, extending the life of a vehicle longer than normal with the intention that it will go back down? I just need time to sort through this, and
I think those are the 2 options.
So do we basically table this
I'll make a motion to table this until the next
and
meeting.
bring it back?
Chris, I have one more question. Like, how does your staff feel about having like the undercover vehicle? I mean, I think it's smart. And do other communities have undercover? I mean, yeah, I can't tell that it's you.
The Black Creek vehicle is unmarked. There's a Clintonville one that's unmarked. The one over in New London that's not marked. The Actons are both marked. I don't know about Manawa. There's several agencies that have them that are not marked. It's kind of however that they want them. It's nice to have, like I said, when we had that officer safety issue. I mean, the alternative to not having him in an unmarked squad car was to pay him for 2 weeks worth of work. $2,000 for him sitting home.
Okay, we have a motion on the
I
table.
made a motion to table.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, 'cause I do want to just.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer Jane.
My report was in the packet. We are very busy with absentee voters. I think we have 200, just under 200 that we mailed out. And that will continue all the way up until Friday before the election. In-person voting starts on Tuesday. So,
And are you gonna have various hours? Are you gonna post those hours?
yep, we put them on the internet, we put them on Facebook, and they're posted here at the village.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions for Jane? Okay, we'll go to B, Director of Public Works. Aaron?
My report was in the packet. Construction on Mill Street and construction on the park and splash pad in Alonzo are going well. And weather's holding good, so we're gonna keep going as long as the weather's out.
So is there a plan if it freezes and are we to stop until some point?
Yeah, for the park and the splash pad for sure. They'll just shut it down until next spring. They have it in their schedule. For Mill Street, it's just gonna be working with the contractor to figure out the best way forward.
Is there an issue with cracks in the dam?
We have the DNR asked us to have it inspected. We usually inspect it on a biannual, and we did inspect it last year, but just because it was so wet this year, they asked us to have it re-inspected. We did. The dam is in overall good condition, but there's just a couple small leaks in the abutment walls, that they asked that we get that they said that we should get repaired. So I had a guy from Great Lakes TD and Seal out there today, and he's gonna give us a quote on doing that work. They actually basically drill and then inject in a epoxy that seeks water out actually, so it's hydrophilic. So it pulls the epoxy into the crack and then expands and hardens so that you don't have water leaking anywhere.
Any other questions for Aaron? Okay, we'll go to C, Police Chief Chris.
And my report is in the packet.
Any questions for Chris? Okay, we'll go to D, Library Director Ally.
I will have a report at the next meeting. We have a library board meeting on Tuesday.
Okay. E, Attorney Ashley.
I psyched some of you out. I thought that we had the administrator review this week. It's next month. So thank you for those of you who have gotten those back to me. For those of you that haven't, it's not as urgent as we thought.
It initially was. That was the plan. I just wanted to give her some extra time getting it because I know they've been kind of trying to catch up.
Okay,
So,
because I thought
yeah.
I was crazy.
No, you were right. It
No,
was supposed to be
I had it
twice.
on my calendar, and I talked to Jeannie, and I thought she said that it was this
Yep.
week too.
Yeah.
So I sent an email, and then when I didn't hear, I had Lindsay follow up with, I think, some of you. And Bob, I have yours.
Okay, good.
Anyway, sorry about that.
It's okay. Okay, we'll go to F, Administrator Nathan.
Spent a lot of the week working on some of this stuff. Big bucket garbage stuff kind of came in last minute in DC3 as well. Lots of construction meetings right now. they're gonna probably start on Nash Street, which will be completely blocked next Wednesday, for the water and sewer extension out to, Terrace Banners, potentially there. So that should be starting next week.
I have a question about Terrace Banner.
Yeah,
Did we ever get an engineering report?
for a final plat, no.
No.
Right.
Okay, and they're starting to dig already without that?
Yeah, they can, basically with anything that changes, that's on them, that they would have to alter whatever,
Yeah,
so.
'cause there was some concern with the steepness of that, and that was what I was, when we heard the complaint about the
Right.
construction, okay.
We've seen, they're still waiting on a few things. I know the state, permits are somehow slow right now, with getting those back, from the state. But,
We did bring that up with the contractor today at the meeting.
and we told them directly, like, just FYI, it's not the final plat, so if
Well, and
anything
that's why
changes,
I thought maybe cart before the horse, but I thought, well, maybe I missed something entirely and.
No,
Okay,
yeah,
It used to be that you wouldn't do final plat approval until all of the improvements went in. And then that changed because the developers would have to wait to sell off lots. So that's why we have a financial guarantee after final plat approval, because we've already given them permission then to transfer those lots.
yeah,
That's solving that problem that's been created by that. But
okay, thank you, cause I know there was some concern with seeing that report before these lots and things went in, so, okay.
Any other questions for Nathan? Okay, we go to G, building permit report. There is none in the packet. H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
I had a resident ask to have term limits be discussed for the board. They just,
like years of service or number of terms of service?
either, it was just a topic that they said, can you guys talk about this?
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to 11, communication and miscellaneous business. A, Blackwater Lake District News. Bob?
Nothing new here.
Okay, we'll go to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News.
So we met on the 9th, and they have the fire calls if anybody wants to look at them. The fire department has 80 calls to date. One big one of note was there was a fire in October that they went to, and they were on site for 12 hours. I think the fire was significantly longer than that. It was like an alfalfa plant or something like that. They put out 3 billion gallons of water on one fire, which is, yeah, that's a lot. I guess they treat the alfalfa when it goes in bales, and they think one of them didn't get treated, and then it was just a spontaneous combustion fire. But 3 billion gallons of water was substantial. The EMS had 183 calls to date. Both the 80 calls to date and 183 are pretty close to the norm. The fire truck is currently estimated to be October of 2028, the one that we just ordered recently. And the 2025 budget was presented. And the change in the budget from 2024 to 2025 was $3,300. The fire department budget remained the same. And the reasoning for that was that their maintenance is lower this year due to scheduling and planning. So they had some major maintenance last year on some of the trucks. They'd work on some one year and then some the next year, and the ones that they worked on last year had more expensive repairs than the ones that the planned maintenance that they have on the other trucks this year. So even though expenses are going up, their budget's going to stay the same. EMS accounts for the entire $3,300 increase for next year, and that was due to an increase in personnel expenses because they are fully staffed at 15 people now. And they had more, they're anticipating more costs for schooling, for their members, community education, and supplies for their truck because of the increase in staff.
I have a question.
Sure.
That EMS truck that they've got, I haven't seen it, like in at least 2 months, and maybe I'm just not home during those calls, and that's actually a good thing, right? But has it been in use, or was it out of commission for a while?
The only time that I know that it was out of commission was for just a few days. I think they had one of the mounts for the light vibrated loose, but it's being used. I mean, it's
You've
parked
seen
right.
it? I've seen it. Maybe it's a good thing, yeah.
Tracy lives right across the street from me, so it's parked in her driveway right across the street, and I see it going all the time. So
Okay.
I know it's still being
I've
actively
seen
used.
it. a bit.
So then the extra expenses, that was why I was wondering, so you said the extra expenses, so
It's for supplies.
for supplies and things to keep that
Yes,
truck stocked.
because they have
and
more
everything.
people,
Yeah.
so they have to have more supplies. They also have they have the lifelike dummies for the training, for the additional staff, and they have to have more supplies and so on. But the entire 3,300 was Tracy wasn't at the meeting, so I didn't get as much information as I would like on that, but the explanation to me was that it's all due to the increase in staffing.
Do we need to and I don't know how this works with budget, but do we need to set aside like a fund or something for maintenance? The fire trucks probably aren't like a fund, so to speak, they just plan for certain maintenance. But do we have to do anything special with the EMS vehicle now?
I don't know,
Or
I can ask
scheduled
him.
maintenance and,
I can ask him. I think she hasn't mentioned it yet, so I assume that she had rolled it into their existing budget.
just a thought before we get into budget time, you know? Yeah.
Tracy wasn't at the meeting, so she didn't present the EMS budget, but I did get it in my email. I can forward it to you if you want to take a look at it.
It's not a big deal, I just wanna make
Okay.
sure that if there's any like bigger repairs, that we've got sort of a fund available for that.
Okay, I'll make sure I mention it to her. I see her every day, almost
Just wanna
every day.
make sure we're budgeting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a good point.
Any other questions for Jim? Go to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Reports and News, it is in the packet. D, Hortonville Civic Association, Jane, nothing new. Okay, E, Senior Activities Committee, and it was in the packet. 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present, there are none. 13, I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We adjourn at 8:08.